Let's great reset the show.
I'm a professional broadcaster.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is September 21st, 2020. This is episode 245. And today, the Great Fraud Reset. And I'm your best buddy, Basil.
And this is Gonz. Welcome to the podcast where we love Jesus, we love you, we're trying to learn to love ourselves, and also very difficult, loving our enemies. So hard. So hard to do when all they're doing is economic fraud and, scamdemics and all that kind of stuff.
So many things going on, Gonz. Well, we're back starting yet another week that will fly by in the blink of an eye. And I don't know, no news to report on my side. Oopsies, sorry, I had Twitch playing there. What about you, Gonz? Anything new going on?
I had several people message me and tell me, first off, I woke up with a crink in my neck, so please pray for my neck to not be so painful.
Okay.
Also, I got an email from my father, a couple people that I used to write books with and stuff. I guess Gonzo was like the word of the day a few days ago.
Ooh.
And it came up in a quiz. And so the question was, Gonzo or word genius, as an adjective, what does Gonzo mean? Your options were big-hearted, bizarre, bilingual, or biblical.
Oh,
wow. And
it sounds like they all apply.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? But the correct answer is bizarre.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm a weirdo. Is basically what they're trying to say. And the official definition of Gonzo was of or associated with journalistic writing of an exaggerated, subjective, and fictionalized style.
Yeah.
Bizarre or crazy. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, see, everybody thinks that I'm the weird one with my big googly eyes and, just general demeanor, but it's right there in your name.
I know, my
You're
name.
the weird one. Let it be on record. I am the normal one of the group here.
Yeah, at least Johnny Depp played a drug addict of gonzo journalism over in
it was Hunter S. Thompson, the classic gonzo journalist. All right, well, sounds good. Should we just jump right into the stories here?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Okie dokie, folks. We're going to be getting some news here from thedailypress.com. But just so if you don't know, now you know, Flippy is the colloquial name for the disembodied robot arm that is taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use Flippy as a touchstone to talk about how robotics and AI are moving into our lives, whether we like it or not, and what we can do as the resistance. But I'm over here at dailypress.com.
Yeah, if there's ever was a phrase or a word that was sort of co-opted during the last election cycle, it's the resistance.
I know. It really is bugging me,
just
resistance.
Just means you're like a Democrat against Orange Man. If you're the resistance.
It used to be, you could say you were part of the resistance loud and proud because it meant you were going to fight the time-traveling robots from the future. But now it's a whole new thing. Anyways, moving on. The article is titled, During Pandemic, More Workers Being Replaced by Robots, New Study Finds. A new study, Gonz. Don't worry.
The new study was listening to
full-scale scientific study to confirm what I've been saying all along.
I know.
And that is this. Quote, no, not quote. The article reads, the coronavirus pandemic is accelerating the trend of robots replacing humans in the workplace, which could result in a recovery from a recession that nonetheless costs jobs, according to a new report. Workers whose jobs can be done by machines suffered more layoffs per capita than those with jobs that aren't as easily automated, the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia said in a report released Monday. Very suspicious how the Federal Reserve Bank is the one coming out with this.
I know.
People of color were especially harmed, possibly because of their concentration in service jobs at risk of automation. The report noted that most job losses during the health crisis are expected to be temporary, yet cashiers, hotel staffers, parking attendants, and others are at risk of permanently losing work if companies become satisfied with labor-saving technology, or if fears over future pandemics convince firms to stick with machines. The report added that previous recessions resulted in technology replacing laid-off workers too, leading to, quote, jobless recoveries. There has always been anecdotal evidence that the coronavirus has exacerbated job losses to machines. Besides harming business balance sheets, COVID-19 has forced companies to limit contact between customers and employees. The result has been hotels replacing humans with self-checking kiosks, meat packing plants deploying slaughterhouse robots. Slaughterhouse robots. I don't like that. And call centers using artificial intelligence to hold conversations. The study specifically cited the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, which went cashless and laid off 500 toll workers. Quote, policymakers need to rethink how to improve the safety net for workers abruptly displaced by the pandemic, who also face an imminent risk of being replaced by technology, as well as how to prepare for the complex workforce transitions ahead, the report said. The study by economists Lee Ding and Juliette Sainz Molina compared automatable jobs such as shuttle drivers, retail salespersons, and bank tellers to occupations at a low risk of being taken by robots, including nurses, plumbers, and teachers. Workers with automatable occupations lost 4.2 more jobs per 100 than the low-risk workers. As of August, there were 2.6 million jobs nationwide at risk of permanent automation last month. At risk of permanent automation. Last month, the study said, the Philly Fed found that automatable jobs held by workers of color were particularly hit hard, suffering 5.1 more job losses per 100 jobs than those held by whites. A possible, this is kind of a weird way to put it, but okay. A possible explanation could be that blacks and Latinos are concentrated in jobs that can be done by robots and can't be done at home, such as food service or customer service. The report said, quote, pandemic-induced automation is also likely to exacerbate many pre-existing racial and economic disparities, the report said. Quote, the jobs threatened by automation are not evenly distributed across society. If the coronavirus crisis becomes a prolonged economic crisis, many jobs could be permanently taken by machines, the report warned. It noted that something similar happened during the years-long recovery of the Great Recession. Quote, the actual impact of automation thus could be either relatively modest or quite serious. Oh, great. So insightful. Relatively modest or quite serious. Ultimately, depending on when the coronavirus can be contained and how firms and the government respond to automation technologies, the report said. So there you go, Gons. A lot packed into here. First of all, we got to racialize robots taking jobs. So, automation is racist. We know that now. We've always known it, but now we know it because of science. And also, given a lot of the other topics we're going to talk about today, I think it's important to kind of keep this Flippy update in mind throughout the episode, because it's kind of connected to the Great Reset, the great financial New World Order, global reset that was obviously instigated by the coronavirus pandemic. But automation's a big part of that. And so we'll be seeing more of this, Gonzo.
Yeah, we definitely said when the coronavirus first started its quote unquote breakout, and NBA shut down and they started shutting everything down. I think we went on record on Canary Cry News Talk and said like this, they're going to just pump out the robots because I mean, I think we were talking about some of this stuff even before the new year because there were kind of smatterings from China that something had broken out, blah, blah, blah. But we were saying like, oh, this kind of thing, if it spreads, they're just getting ready for the robots to take over. And the financial infrastructure was already shaky. A lot of the, if you looked at what they were doing last year with the repo markets, they were printing money to keep the banks liquid, stuff like that. So they were already doing things that were like, okay, this is pretty shady. It's all going to fall apart. And this is one of those moments.
Called it.
And the Fed, I like how the Federal Reserve, right? Was it the Federal Reserve or Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia? They had to do a report to come up with this. It's like anybody who's paying attention can tell you. Just listen to Canary Cry News Talk. You don't even have to do a report. That's the problem,
Gons. Nobody is paying attention.
I guess.
The only people paying attention are listening to this show right now.
I know. So anyway, I think that the bankers realized, oh shoot, our tellers can be replaced by robots. Or maybe they're like, yes, our tellers can be replaced by robots. Maybe it was the other way.
I mean, tellers were more or less replaced by robots many decades ago.
Sure.
The automated teller machine.
The ATM. Yeah, sure. But I guess, I don't know. Either way, banking is a big part of the entire reset in general. And there is no Flippy without some kind of economic shift to pay them, basically. But also, robots are racist. I think that's kind of the the takeaway here.
It's true. We've known it for years.
I know. Those botists. Let's see. Oh, yes.
I'm for the robots.
Yeah, I'm for the robots. Real quick, before we go into the updates, just forgot to mention this. Hear the Watchmen, Igniting the Fire. It's in a couple days here for the virtual conference. My presentation is ready to go. And if you go to hearthewatchmen.com and you decide to participate, you can use Shimura 20. That's SHIMURA 20 to get a discount for Hear the Watchmen. Hold on. HearTheWatchmen.com.
Yeah, so exciting. Come on.
Yep.
Come on, everybody.
Just wanted to let y'all know. And okay, so let's get into some of the updates.
We interrupt this broadcast to give you a brief update. By the end of this timely interruption, you will be thoroughly updated.
We were saying it's kind of a somewhat of a slow news day, only because there hasn't been like crazy news. Always feels like, everything's breaking news. But this story was out at the end of last week, and there's an update here. And I'm going to pronounce this thing wrong because I haven't actually heard anyone talk or say it like in news media. But this is NBCnews.com. Suspect arrested for allegedly sending ricin. Oh, it's ricin. Okay, I knew I was going to say it wrong. Ricin tainted letter to White House.
Ooh.
Yeah. Washington. A woman suspected of sending a letter containing the deadly poison ricin to the White House was arrested trying to enter the United States from Canada. Two federal law enforcement officials said Sunday. An FBI spokesperson confirmed the arrest and said the agency is continuing to investigate the suspicious letter. The federal law enforcement official said the woman was taken into custody while traveling across Peace Bridge, which connects Fort Erie, Ontario, and Buffalo, New York. Another federal law enforcement official said the suspect was detained by Customs and Border Protection's agents. Additional information about the arrest and the suspect was not immediately available. The FBI said Saturday that it was investigating a suspicious letter addressed to President Donald Trump that had been intercepted.
Ooh.
It wasn't clear when the letter was sent out or where it was intercepted. Law enforcement officials said Saturday that the poison, which is highly toxic and can cause organ failure and death, was detected at an off-site facility that screens mail across or addressed to the White House. So, I get the feeling that this isn't like the first time this has happened.
Certainly not.
Yeah, but it's weird that it's in the news. And I don't know if it's a sympathy thing for Trump or, just trying to show how the protections or the mail protection of the White House still works or what.
Right. Yeah, I would have to imagine that. I mean, if you think that you can address a letter to President Trump and that he will actually open it, you just have like a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world works.
I know what I'll do. And I think this was from Canada too. So maybe there's an extra layer of, just not knowing exactly how it all works. But
I gotta say, my only touchstone to ricin, and I'm sure a big portion of our listeners' touchstone for ricin is it played a role in Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch Breaking Bad.
There's a whole arc about ricin in Breaking Bad.
Oh, maybe. Oh, there you go. Maybe they watched the show and they were inspired.
That's where they got the idea
to do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think it comes from some sort of beans.
Or,
I don't know.
Or rice.
I can't remember.
Are they racist?
Ha.
Okay. All right. So there you go. I mean, again, it was kind of made a big deal, but it's always funny to look at Twitter and see all the people, talk about the certain side of the aisle say, oh, I wish Trump would have opened it and sniffed it right out of the envelope. And then the other side saying like, see, everyone's trying to kill Trump.
Yeah. Yes, this is technically an assassination attempt.
It is. And, I would imagine that he's had quite a bit that we just don't know about. Every president has some kind of crazy person going after him at some point, I'm sure. And we just don't know about it. It's not declassified unless it, a bunch of people see it in public or something, but
yeah, hopefully this doesn't get used, with all the talk about the postal service right now is crazy, not just with voting, but the digital dollar wallet's going to be managed by the post office. And now, an assassination attempt for the president coming through the post office.
Yeah.
It might be part of a more sort of elaborate long-term play that's going on here. So I'm just going to say that out loud, and then we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, nothing is on purpose, or nothing is on by mistake when it comes to these types of stories and events even. But there's another big news over the weekend.
It's got to be biblical.
Of course, RGB passed away finally, supposedly. I know all the theories about, she was maybe gone for a while, which wouldn't surprise me one bit. But this is the WashingtonPost.com. Who is Amy Coney Barrett, the judge at the top of Trump's list to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg? And it says here at the top of President Trump's list to replace RBG on the Supreme Court is U.S. Circuit Court Judge Amy Coney Barrett, a jurist in the mold of the late Antonin Scalia, who fulfilled... Scalia. Wasn't he shot? Didn't he get shot?
No. He suffered a heart attack in Texas, but there's a lot of theories about having that been an assassination.
Oh, okay.
And I think there was rumors that he was found with a pillow over his head.
Oh,
died of a heart attack, but had a pillow over his head.
Who was the one that was beat with the baseball bat? I don't remember. Anyway,
I have no idea.
It might have been one of the. Anyway, okay. So Scalia, who fulfills nearly all criteria on conservatives' wish list, at 48 years old, Barrett could hold the lifetime seat for several decades. Trump's first two nominees to the nation's highest court, Neil M. Gorsuch and Brett M. Kavanaugh, are in their 50s. Trump's justice will potentially replace 1/3 of the Supreme Court for generations. Why is she at the top of Trump's list? A devout Catholic who is fervently anti-abortion, Barrett appeals to Trump's conservative base, but Republicans also hope that for moderates such as Senator Susan Collins, her gender makes her a more palatable replacement for Ginsburg, a feminist icon who spent her life fighting for gender equality and also allowing for the murder of millions of babies. That's just my commentary there. Trump considered Barrett in 2018 to replace retired Justice Anthony M. Kennedy, but reportedly said he was saving her for Ginsburg's slot. And it kind of goes into some detail here, but the part that everyone's freaking out about, it was trending on Twitter and all that stuff. What would be the impact of Barrett's religion on her rulings on such issues as Roe v. Wade? During her confirmation hearing to the appeals court, Barrett said in a role she would, quote, follow all Supreme Court precedent without fail and would regard decisions such as Roe versus Wade as binding precedent. Quote, I would never impose my own personal convictions upon the law, she added, But Democrats pointed to comments she had made at Notre Dame years before about being a, quote, different kind of lawyer. She said, we should always remember that a, quote, legal career is but a means to an end, and that end is building the kingdom of God.
Dun, dun, dun.
So everyone's freaking out. The lefties are all freaking out. Hey, we don't want a theocracy in this country.
Right.
And it's like baiting the people on the right saying, hey,
yes, we do.
Yeah, we do, I think. But, the more I think people that follow in our vein are saying, yeah, but.
Because of course, it's a straw man is the thing. Like,
right.
Just because someone has a certain belief and is in some sort of power doesn't mean it's a theocracy, people.
I know. Well, yeah.
But yes, it's another one of those switcheroonies you need to be, everybody needs to be careful of, because, if you take the bait and say, we do want a theocracy, that'll set up a dangerous precedent for the future. One of the famous sort of transitions from democracy to theocracy, although it wasn't a democracy. But, when you see those pictures of what was it? Was it Iraq or Iran? I think it was Iraq from the 70s. And it looked almost exact. It was like completely Americanized, bikinis and, Western haircuts and skyscrapers and cars, American made cars. And then just a few years later, it became an Islam theocracy. And that's how we got to where we are today. So,
right.
So yes, of course, it's a concerning thing, I think, for everybody in general. And again, I personally will go back to my original thoughts about theocracies, which is you can't legislate people into heaven. You can't legislate people into the kingdom of God,
Yeah.
So I don't know, just a bunch of nonsense.
The reason why it was trending on Twitter is a lot of nonsense. But just for clarification's sake, from at least my position, I think you're kind of in line with me here, Basil, with this. But when I hear kingdom of God, I go back to the Bible. It mentions it several times, over 60 something times in the New Testament, depending on what translation you have. And a lot of it has to do with kind of what Heiser talks about, this already not yet, that, it's the power of heaven, or, the power of God through his people. And that it's not some kind of established, organized government, but it's just people doing the will of God on earth and doing things like spreading the gospel or helping people, whatever it is.
Right.
And that's sort of the precedent that's set. It's not so much like, we must set up this court and we must rule with an iron fist and all that stuff. The actual true biblical theocracy, if you're going to even, say that word and suggest that it's going to come into fruition at some point, is when Jesus returns and he's actually ruling, on earth again. That will be a sort of theocracy. But at that point, if it's God himself ruling, then, hey, I'm okay with that, Hey, hey, all right. But in the meantime, race wars.
The race wars.
Race war.
I've warned you and warned you and warned you.
This is a rather quick update. This is faithwire.com. Black Lives Matter org deletes about page calling for disruption of nuclear family. That was one of the big talking points from the BLM website. Was in the about section. They were talking about, down with the patriarchy, down with, what does it say? I think there's a quote here. Quote, disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure to dismantle the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts so that they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work, as well as foster a queer affirming network by freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual. And
who believes that?
I don't know, but it's just the whole thing.
Nobody believes that.
The whole thing was ridiculous, and I think there's a reason. This is like too late. Too little, too late PR for trying to convince those who would sit on the other side of the fence to this whole movement. But we've talked about how the organizers of BLM are not only self-admitted trained Marxists, but also involved in some pretty freaky dark occult spiritual practices. And so you don't need
use of
any of that.
hashtags as manifestation spells,
right?
And things like that.
Yeah. So they can delete this page, this about page, and it doesn't matter. You're not going to convince certain people to support this organization.
Right.
And that's why,
I wonder why they took it down. I mean, was it just causing too much trouble? They've had it up during the peak of their popularity.
I think maybe because one of the loud voices against the language there was a pretty well-known African-American sports commentator. What was his name? Marcellus Wiley, I think. I think he played football. And he came out and he basically said, like, I think we played the clip maybe even a few episodes ago, where he was just saying, I agree with the whole concept, but then he went to the website and he looked at the about page and he's reading how it's tearing down the nuclear family when he knows through experience that the reason why there's so many broken homes in the African American community is because there's no father around, that kind of thing. Right. So, and he lived that growing up. So he was really shedding a light on the problems there with the about page. And so maybe it got into the ear of the organizers and they were getting similar types of sentiment from the African American community. And so, take it down. Got to hide that information.
PR move.
Yeah. So there you go. And that's whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, the damage has been done already in terms of riots and all that stuff and the social movement and upheaval. So who cares really at this point? But just something to shed a light on that they're maybe they have feelings over there. The organizers of BLM. Maybe they're still human.
That's crazy.
There's a shred of humanity.
Talk.
Those like movies or like anime where they get taken over by something. And then like for a moment they remember who they are. They're like humans, and then they go back to being monsters. It's like one of those moments maybe.
Wow. What a very specific,
I can't think of the
cultural touchstone.
I'm trying to think of the name of the show that I'm thinking, but anyway, it doesn't matter. All right. One more quick, race war update here.
The race wars.
Race war.
I've warned you and warned you and warned you.
And this one, again, the damage has been done and the never let a good crisis go to waste. NBCNewYork.com, DOJ designates New York City as an anarchist jurisdiction. So it's officially an anarchist jurisdiction. New York City is one of 3 places that, quote, have permitted violence and destruction of property to persist and have refused to undertake reasonable measures to counteract criminal activities, leading to its designation as an anarchist jurisdiction, the Justice Department said Monday. And of course, Cuomo is, denying it.
That's interesting. That's a pretty big move, actually.
It is. And here's Cuomo's response. I understand the politics, but when you try to manipulate and distort government agencies to play politics, which is what the Trump administration has done from day one, this is more of the same, Cuomo said on a conference call with reporters. Quote, the president can't supersede the law and say I'm going to make those funds basically discretionary funds, which is what he would have to do. If they actually do this, we will challenge it legally and they will lose once again, he added. And the other places that got the same label, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
So,
anarchist jurisdiction. I wonder if that's a legal term or just a descriptor.
I don't know.
It seems like a category that, keeps the government, the federal government from being obligated to give funding.
Yeah. Which is, this is like the on the face of it, it's kind of that discussion of, okay, how much power do we provide the federal government over state legislation? It's an ongoing debate, but also these places are being burnt down, or at least parts of those cities.
Yeah, I really like the irony of Cuomo sort of with disdain saying how he's trying to make us play politics. Oh, how the horrible a politician making the other politicians play politics. It's your job, Cuomo.
And the governor. Yeah. The governor saying it too.
Yeah.
Yep. So there you go. Those are your quick updates on all the madness happening in the world. And of course, it doesn't end because we got a pretty wild story here today.
Gets even bigger, Gons. Cha-ching. All right. Well, Gons, you've heard it. We've all heard of some big stuff going on in the world of money. And interestingly enough, spearheaded by BuzzFeed News.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard it yet, folks, we're over here on BuzzFeed News, and they have put together a very intense and I don't know how to say it. It's just an intense special little page on their website filled with animations and long drawn out graphic descriptors and things. But Gons, I'm talking about the Fincen files.
I know, and they actually even changed their little avatar on Twitter. I think I took a picture of it, and it's turned into, for BuzzFeed News. Let me try to pull it up here. It says Fincen files, and it's just like the all-seeing eye, basically, in the middle of it. Which is like, okay, so what do you mean? Are you for it or against it, or what's going on? But yeah, BuzzFeed News. I'm gonna try to pull it up here on the screen.
Yeah,
for those of you
and
who
this
are watching.
is just so everybody's aware as we go into this. This is one of the biggest. Now, of course, there's not too many things we didn't already know about if you listen to this show, but it's the biggest sort of public display. I mean, take into consideration the Great Reset, the financial ruling elite, the global chess game that is, geopolitical financial movement. And of course, we all know how corrupt the banks are, but this is like the biggest public display of these sort of secret worlds. And so let's get into it, Gons. This is the Fincen files.
Are you going to go through the graphics, or are you just going to get?
I wasn't going to. Should I?
No, you don't have to. It's just they went through a whole thing to put together a whole spiel.
Yeah. Do you want to put down do you have a ominous music bed?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me see if I can find. Nothing. Hold on. No, not slow jam. Funky loop. Let's see.
Funky loop.
Rain ambiance.
Rain ambiance could do it. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Money from drug cartels, organized crime rings, corrupt leaders, money that funds terror networks, bloody wars, and human trafficking, all laundered clean. The banks don't stop the money, and the government doesn't stop the banks. BuzzFeed News, the Fincen files. It's pretty good. All right, here we go. Let's get into it because it's going to be a little long, but that's just because it's so dang important.
I can bother you throughout the process.
Yeah, we'll cut through it here. So. The article reads, a huge trove of secret government documents reveals for the first time how the giants of Western banking move trillions of dollars in suspicious transactions, enriching themselves and their shareholders while facilitating a network of terrorists, kleptocrats, and drug kingpins. The U.S.
They're probably drunk
kingpins. The U.S. government, despite its vast powers, fails to stop it. Today, the Fincen files thousands of, quote, suspicious activity reports and other U.S. government documents offer an unprecedented view of global financial corruption, the banks enabling it, and the government agencies that watch it as it flourishes. Watch as it flourishes. But BuzzFeed News has shared these reports with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and more than 100 news organizations in 88 countries. These documents, compiled by banks, shared with the government, but kept from public view, expose the hollowness of banking safeguards and the ease with which criminals have exploited them. Profits from deadly drug wars, fortunes embezzled from developing countries, and hard-earned savings stolen in a Ponzi scheme were all allowed to flow into and out of these financial institutions, despite warnings from the bank's own employees. Money laundering is a crime that makes other crimes possible. It can accelerate economic inequality, drain public funds, undermine democracy, and destabilize nations. And the banks play a key role. Quote, some of these people in those crisp white shirts and their sharp suits are feeding off the tragedy of people dying all over the world, said Martin Woods, a former suspicious transactions investigator for Wachovia. Laws that were meant to stop financial crime have instead allowed it to flourish, so long as banks file a notice that it may be facilitating criminal activity. It all but immunizes itself and its executives from criminal prosecution. The suspicious activity alert effectively gives them a free pass to keep moving the money and collecting the fees. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or Fincen, is the agency within the Treasury Department charged with combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and other financial crimes. It collects millions of these suspicious activity reports known as SARS.
I know.
Gons.
I know. It's SARS.
Of course it's SARS. It makes them available to U.S. law enforcement agencies and other nations' financial intelligence operations. It even compiles a report called Kleptocracy Weekly. I gotta subscribe to Kleptocracy Weekly. That summarizes the dealings of foreign leaders such as Russian President Vladimir Putin. What it does not do is force the banks to shut the money laundering down. In the rare instances when the U.S. government does crack down on banks, it often relies on sweetheart deals called deferred prosecution agreements, which include fines but no high-level arrests. The Trump administration has made it even harder to hold executives personally accountable under guidance by former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein that warned government agencies against piling on. But the Fincen Files investigation shows that even after they were prosecuted or fined for financial misconduct, banks such as JP Morgan Chase, HSBC, Standard Chartered Deutsche Bank, and Bank of New York Mellon continued to move money for suspected criminals. Suspicious payments flow around the world and into countless industries, from international sports to Hollywood entertainment to luxury real estate to Nobu sushi restaurants. They filter into the companies that make familiar items from people's lives, from the gas in their car to the granola in their cereal bowl. The Fincen Files expose an underlying truth of the modern era. The networks through which dirty money traverse the world have become vital arteries of the global economy. They enable a shadow financial system so wide-ranging and so unchecked that it has become inextricable from the so-called legitimate economy. Banks with household names have helped make it so. BuzzFeed News' investigation shows that, first bullet point, Standard Chartered moved money on behalf of Al Zaruni Exchange, a Dubai-based business that was later accused of laundering cash on behalf of the Taliban. During the years that Al Zaruni was a Standard Chartered customer, Taliban militants staged violent attacks that killed civilians and soldiers. HSBC's Hong Kong branch allowed WCM 777, a Ponzi scheme, to move more than $15 million even as the business was being barred from operating in 3 states. Authorities say that the scam stole at least $80 million from investors, mainly Latino and Asian immigrants, and the company's owner used the looted funds to buy 2 golf courses, a 7,000 square foot mansion, a 39.8 carat diamond, and mining rights in Sierra Leone. Bank of America, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, American Express, and others collectively processed millions of dollars in transactions for the family of Viktor Krapunov. Krapunov, the former mayor of Kazakhstan's most populous city, even after Interpol issued a red notice for his arrest. Krapunov, who had already fled to Switzerland and who claims the allegations are politically motivated, was later convicted in absentia on charges that included bribe taking and defrauding the city through the sale of public property. The banks mentioned in this story said they could not comment on specific transactions due to bank secrecy laws. Their statements can be found here. By law, banks must file suspicious activity reports when they spot transactions that bear the hallmarks of money laundering or other financial misconduct, such as large, round number transactions or payments between companies with no discernible business relationship. SARS are not by themselves evidence of a crime, but Fincen director Kenneth Blanco has called them, quote, vital for law enforcement investigations. Information from millions of these documents feeds into a single database through which law enforcement officers can summon detailed financial information with a few keystrokes. The Fincen files opens a rare window into this vast system of financial intelligence, unmatched in the world, but all but unknown to the public. The SARS themselves are so closely held that members of the public cannot obtain them through record requests or subpoenas, and banks are not allowed even to confirm their existence. Prior to this reporting, very few SARS had ever been revealed. The Fincen files encompass more than 2,100 of them. For more than a year, BuzzFeed News and its partner news organizations across the world mined the information on these tens of thousands of pages to map more than 200,000 transactions. In all, suspicious activity reports in the Fincen files flagged more than $2 trillion in transactions between 1999 and 2017. Western banks could have blocked almost any of them, but in most cases, they kept the money moving and kept collecting their fees. Suspicious activity reports are written by the bank's financial crime watchdogs or compliance officers, who are often parked in remote offices and left to make a sense of a vast number of transactions with very few resources, writing SARS with little research or verification. BuzzFeed News' research went much further, including reams of internal bank data, thousands of pages of public records, hundreds of interviews with sources across the globe, dozens of Freedom of Information Act filings, 5 public record lawsuits, and requests for 3 federal courts to unseal records, all to piece together the intricacies of a financial system that is largely hidden. BuzzFeed News is not publishing the SARS in full because they contain information about people or companies that are not under suspicion, but who are swept up in the bank's searches. A subset of the documents is being published with redactions to support reporting in specific stories. After the Treasury Department received detailed questions about the Fincen files investigation, the agency released a statement saying that it was, quote, aware that various media outlets intend to publish a series of articles based on unlawfully disclosed suspicious activity reports. It continued, quote, the unauthorized disclosure of SARS is a crime that can impact the national security of the United States, compromise law enforcement investigations, and threaten the safety and security of the institutions and individuals who file such reports. The agency announced that it was referring to the matter to the Department of Justice and the Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General. In a subsequent letter, Fincen's general counsel said that disclosure of SARS can make banks less willing to file them, which, quote, could mean law enforcement has fewer potential leads to stop crimes like human trafficking, child exploitation, fraud, corruption, terrorism, and cyber-enabled crime. Fincen did not respond to the repeated invitations to discuss security concerns.
So wait, before you go on here. So basically,
Sure.
are they saying Fincen doesn't like, or they didn't like the Treasury Department didn't like that the information was going public because it would cause criminals to not, or hold on. I'm trying.
It's the same thing that they say about every, piece of information that they don't want out, which is it's a national security risk.
Right.
If criminals know that they're on some sort of list, they'll try to cover their tracks and it'll be harder to catch them in the future. But no action is ever taken on these things anyways.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the whole point.
That's what I'm saying. It's weird because they're like, oh, wait, we don't want, this is unauthorized. It's a national security issue.
No, it's obvious.
Which is basically them saying
bull hockey.
Yeah, well, that is basically them saying, well, then because then they'll stop doing it. They'll stop exploiting.
Right. So far, what we have is the government and banks and criminals all on the same team, helping to move money around and not get people in trouble, which, of course, we've known forever.
Yeah.
But the fact that this is coming out to the public, much less from BuzzFeed. I mean, I will give the credit to BuzzFeed here. Over the years, now there's a lot of problems. They're just basically another mainstream media outlet. But we know they went from making listicles and figuring out what kind of bread you are to actually spearheading a pretty important story here.
Yeah.
Again, not one that's been unknown, but one that has not had some sort of mainstream credibility to it.
Well, I think part of it too is because of course, everything is Orange Man bad. So I think to the people that are not paying attention to the details, they'll say, "Oh, look at what the Orange Man is allowed to happen."
Oh, sure.
And turn the blind eye.
All sorts of other concurrently running stories to connect it.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is that, I mean, of course, Donald Trump is part of that system. I mean, he's you don't get that rich and you don't become president and you don't. The Deutsche Bank is one of his biggest lenders. So, yes, of course, Trump is going to be wrapped up in this. But there's no reason to speak as if he may be innocent.
Oh, I know.
Regarding any of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I pulled up a clip here before we go on, and we've played this clip before too. Let me see if I can. It's a clip of a clip, but this is Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin insists cash isn't used to do bad things. This is published on Altcoin Daily back in December of 2019. But listen to Steve Mnuchin here deny that the dollar is ever laundered.
Problem if we decided every time that cash itself or any other form of currency, every time it's used for some nefarious activities, if we weren't going to use it anymore. I'm not sure that maybe it's a little easier at this point in the technology for certain illicit activities, but that can't be the reason to say you're not going to use something. We wouldn't even use cash then, because cash is laundered all the time and used for nefarious that's all we've ever used for nefarious activities, and we certainly had plenty of them.
I don't think that's accurate at all. The cash is laundered all the time. We have the strongest AML system in the world.
Yeah. So he goes on, talks about the anti-money laundering AML process. It's strong for you and I.
Yeah,
but not for
the banks, not the actual banks themselves,
or the people with a lot of money trying to move stuff around to do their whatever. But anyway, I just thought I'd pull that clip up and remind us of just the nonsense that has been spun publicly for years. So it's kind of refreshing to know that, almost a year later, at least it's somewhat mainstream that this information is out there. But we also have to remember, why is it going public now? What is the reason for exposing themselves here? But anyway, go on.
Senator Ron Wyden, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which requested some of these SARs, said the Fincen files investigation, quote, reinforces the fact that we now have two systems of law enforcement and justice in the country. Drug cartels move millions through U.S. banks. Poor people go to jail for possession. Quote, if you're wealthy and well-connected, you can figure out how to do an enormous amount of harm to society at large and ensure that it accrues opposed to enormous financial benefit for all of you. Robert Mazur, a former federal special agent and an expert in money laundering, said that making this material public, quote, could enhance national security, aid future investigations, and encourage institutions to more consistently adhere to SAR filing requirements, and, quote, will hopefully get people who are in a position of power to correct an apparent systemic failure. Yeah, good luck on that one. Then it moves into a historic opportunity. Based in the United Arab Emirates, Mazacca General Trading presented itself to the world as a wholesaler. But between March 2013 and April 2014, the company received nearly $50 million from 5 companies involved in a Russian money laundering ring that manipulated international stock trades. Man, get me on that newsletter. In May and June 2014, it received more than $4 million from a Singapore company that appears barely even to exist. It was also sending and receiving money from British firms located at 175 Darks Lane, one of the world's most notorious addresses for shell companies, which are a common tool to hide ownership. These transactions by Mazacca General Trading, which the Treasury Department later declared to be part of the Kanani Money Laundering Network, a group that has financed terrorism and drug cartels around the globe, involved businesses and people far from the shores of the United States. But as the money pinged around from one bank to another, it was all being tracked, and it would all be reported to the Treasury Department. Because the US dollar is the lifeblood of international finance, the common denominator between the world's disparate currencies, banking customers around the world need to access it, but only select banks are licensed to conduct dollar transactions. So smaller banks in other countries partner with larger institutions, which exchange their customers' pesos, yuan, or dirham for greenbacks. I don't think we can say greenbacks anymore. It sounds racist. For a fee, the arrangement known as correspondent banking helps keep the global economy humming. As they pass through U.S. banks, these transfers give the Treasury Department a advantage that no other country has. It shares some of that information through the Egmont Group, a little-known coalition of financial intelligence units from more than 150 countries and territories. SARS have provided Egmont members with financial details that would be otherwise unattainable, such as those concerning former Olympic Committee member Lamine Diack, who has been sentenced to prison for crimes connected to the Russian doping scandal, and the Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, who was sanctioned by the U.S. 2 years ago. Deripaska has sued the U.S. government, maintaining that he is an innocent victim of politics. But if the database is a powerful asset to law enforcement investigations, to privacy advocates, it is a nightmare of overreach. Congress created the current SAR program in 1992, making banks the front line in the fight against money laundering. But Michael German, a former FBI special agent who is a national security and privacy expert, said that after 9/11, the SAR program became more about mass surveillance than identifying discrete transactions to disrupt money launderers. Today, he said, quote, the data is used like the data from other mass surveillance programs. Find someone who you want to get for whatever reason, then sift through the vast troves of data collected to find anything you can hang them with. In 2017, when U.S. congressional committees began investigating the last presidential election and other matters, they too turned to the Treasury Department database. They requested SARs on the Deutsche Bank, which had loaned Trump money, Christopher Steele, the former MI6 agent who wrote the so-called Trump dossier, an array of Russian oligarchs, Trump's former campaign chairperson Paul Manafort, and even a small casino in the Pacific run by a former Trump employee. All told, they were looking for information on more than 200 entities. Fincen unearthed tens of thousands of pages of documents. Those documents, along with a few additional SARs requested by federal law enforcement authorities, make up the majority of the Fincen files. Some were never turned over to the committees that requested them. A person familiar with the matter blew the whistle to multiple members of Congress. The collection does not include any SARs about Trump's finances. A source familiar with the matter told BuzzFeed News that Fincen's database did not contain SARS on either Trump or the Trump organization. That's actually pretty impressive because it sounds like they have stuff on everybody but Trump. And though the documents show suspicious payments to people in Trump's orbit before and after key moments in the 2016 presidential campaign, they do not provide direct information on any election interference. Because the searches were so broad, however, they revealed something that most in Congress hadn't even been looking for. Evidence that the world's biggest banks kept doing business with clients that they themselves suspected were facilitating terror and corruption. The information was laid out in transaction by transaction, and it had been there all along. Yikers. So of course we got to get a nice big, Trump shout out in this whole thing, but pretty impressive. Now, I have a hard time believing that you know what? I didn't put it in today's episode. Maybe we'll do it again. But somebody sent me a report about how, Trump's main real estate investments have a whole bunch of foreign governments renting space in those towers. So, he's like literally getting money from the government of Qatar and China and stuff.
Right.
Being paid in like millions of dollars of rent, just renting these spaces, and how there's nobody in the office. They just rent like 2 floors of a tower and nobody's actually using it. So very suspicious there, but that's besides the point. Any updates before we hit the last little leg here?
No, not really. I mean, we don't have to go through all of it either. A lot of it is just more details on how the banks. Yeah, we may or may not go through the whole thing, but the fact of the matter is that, and now I'm not even referring to the information in this article or the information that might be contained within these SARs, the suspicious activity reports. This is a deep, dark secret between governments and banks and criminal organizations. But the fact that it's even going public is, it deserves a little bit of analysis, because we're in this place where a huge movement to restructure everything in the world. I mean, and it's even connected to Flippy. It's connected to robotics. It's connected to the automation of industries as a whole. And of course, all leading back to the Great Reset, which is the sort of new world order, nuclear bomb of restructuring the economics of the entire world. But, this coming out now can and will serve as a hard evidence demonization of the current financial system, which, on one hand, I can't argue with, and I can't even be mad about it. I mean, it's frustrating as anything in the world, the fact that, banks are basically legally allowed to knowingly launder trillions of dollars for criminal organizations, which include politicians of all shapes and sizes. And, they're legally allowed to do all this, and nothing gets done about it, which is part of the reason, the world is in such a sad state of affairs. Yeah. And I have a clip of Klaus, the WEF founder. Mm-hmm. We must prepare for an angrier world. But this is this Klaus Schwab guy is just my goodness. I mean, if you want like a villain character in the world in terms of just people, this guy just sounds and looks like a villain. I'll play a couple minutes of this from back in July of 2020 from CNBC International. He's talking about the Great Reset here.
I don't know how it will play out in November, but what we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed, and particularly also people in the gray economy, which are not counted for, who lose their jobs. So we will see definitively a lot of anger already now, but probably increased by the end of the year, because this crisis will be with us until we really have found a remedy. So we have to prepare for a more angry world. And
okay, this is in July during the height of like the riots and all that stuff going on.
Right.
And this guy is standing here. We're going to have to accept an angrier world, an even angrier world than we have now. Like, dude, what are you talking about? But okay, let's go on for a little bit longer.
How to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world, to see that we provide everybody with decent access to the health system, that we make sure that those people who are really left behind, and I'm not speaking only on national levels, I'm speaking also internationally. If I see now the tragedy in some of the emerging countries like South Africa, like some countries in East Asia, I think it's all, I don't have too many remedies. The remedies have to be discussed through dialogue by the stakeholders of our global system. But I just see the need for such a dialogue, and I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
There you go. Great reset.
Great reset.
We must have great reset.
Yeah. And, to put it into a spiritual context, I mean, if you want to talk about powers and principalities, this is the structure. This is a global structure that is basically the altar of mammon. I mean, you talk about global banking and it really is its own sort of entity, even if you just look at it in sort of a materialistic worldview, even the structure itself and everything going on within it is like this little g God that affects everything in the world, can control, empires rise and fall with this global banking system. Mm-hmm. And of course, in a spiritual perspective, there's an actual spirit or principality behind that. But take into consideration that, people will lay down sacrifices on this altar. I mean, global finances, using banks, participating in this system, all while, your sacrifices, putting your money in a bank, and those banks use it to, make investments and get involved in all sorts of industries, is facilitating like true evil. I mean, the banks facilitating knowingly and on purpose money laundering that's supporting terrorism, supporting human trafficking, supporting, all these things, just interaction with this altar of mammon, in a material, real way, as well as spiritual, but in an actual physical way, aiding and perpetuating evil, just evilness. Yeah. Not just terrorism and human trafficking, but all sorts of awful things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to see that exposed in a public way, it feels like some minute sense of victory. However, it could very well just be a strategic retreat in order to facilitate, the next big thing, which is the Great Reset.
It's the solution to the
Hegelian dialectic.
Problem reaction. Now they're offering a solution, especially with this type of exposure. But I mean, you talk about the merchants of Mystery Babylon, Revelation 18, and the stuff they're trading. They're trading human souls. And this guy here, this Klaus guy is sitting here. Oh, the stakeholders need to have a conversation. How about no? How about that's been the problem? The stakeholders.
The problem is stakeholders are just that, stakeholders. And they're the ones that benefit from allowing evil to flourish.
Yeah.
Stakeholders talking does nothing but get them all on the same page for the master plan.
And I like how he's like, oh, I really don't have a solution. Oh, we have Great Reset. Like, it's just like the whole thing. is straight out of a comic book. But I think you're right, and I think the suspicions with this whole thing being exposed in this article, this Fincen files and BuzzFeed getting a tip and going all in and exposing this fraud and all this corruption going on. They have to be at a point where they're ready to really hit the reset button.
Yeah, totally.
Because otherwise, they would not let this out. They would not allow a mainstream publication to publish this information and expose themselves effectively unless they're ready to tear it all down. And this goes this goes
and
back
it's
to
all
that story.
part of the plan, meaning that they have the response ready, and the response is this monopoly hegemonic what we consider the New World Order, globalization, unifying all of the financial dealings and organizations, because, instead of having 100 big banks sending sending stuff around and hiding transactions, if you have one single big bank, then there's no separation from which people to hide things from each other. So the answer to all of our problems is a global one world currency and banking system.
Yeah. And part of it has been, I know it's been part of the plan of the elite because they've said it as much. And I always go watch the beginning of Age of Deceit 3. And I quote Manly P. Hall in his final lecture at the Masonic Hall, which was recorded on audio. And he's sitting there talking about how in the 21st century, the Brotherhood has been long at work. They're going to rout out the corruption, just like all the Brotherhood has done throughout the centuries. And they're going to usher in a Prince of Peace. So that's the other side of things eschatologically, which is pretty fascinating, to say the least, is that these people are preparing for a big exposure and a big reset and all this kind of stuff in as a process, as a means to provide a quote unquote Prince of Peace and present some savior figure to the world, because whoever, fixes it presumably is a savior type figure, even in especially in a secular type of context where, oh man, this guy really figured out the whole banking thing. And now all the banking is all, it's all clean and the wealth is redistributed and, human trafficking is down and all these dark networks have been exposed. And hey, starting to sound like a Q narrative, doesn't it? but
imagine that.
Yeah. So I think this is all part of the plan. As nice as it's a small victory in the sense that we get to say "I told you so," but it comes kind of at a point at which it may be too late for some people to realize exactly what's going on. Because if you are too happy about this whole "hey, I told you so," then you can get blindsided by what they're planning to replace everything with. So just got to stay watchful, stay sober-minded. That's right.
And so just to figure out if we're going to move on or complete this, it goes through another 10 paragraphs of, pointing out individual banks and individual, criminal organizations and transactions that they've allowed to go through and stuff like that. So we'll kind of skip over that. I recommend you, it's a good article to educate yourself on. But let's jump down real quick. I'm going to go to the second half of the Can It Be Fixed section. And basically, let's see here. The most powerful way to fix the problem might be the simplest. Arrest the executives whose banks break the law. The bankers will never learn until you start putting silver bracelets on people, Pelletier said. Think of the message you're sending to repeat offenders. These guys know what they're doing, said Thomas Nollner, a former regulator with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. You break the law, you should go to jail, period. That approach was once the norm. Quote, back in the 1980s and 90s, even into the early 2000s, the government went after CEOs all the time, said U.S. District Judge Jed Rakoff, who has been an outspoken critic of weak penalties for white-collar white-collar criminals. In the past, the CEOs of Enron, WorldCom, and Tyco were all sent to jail for what they did, he pointed out. Now that's deterrence. Rakoff went further, quote, under U.S. law, a bank that engages in money laundering can literally be forced out of business by the government. And it is kind of surprising that the government hasn't taken that step, given the obvious deterrent effect it would have. Ultimately, the power to keep criminal profits from being laundered through the U.S. financial system may not reside in the actions of a bank's compliance office or its computer systems or even its executive tier. It may not reside with banking regulators or federal prosecutors or Fincen. It may not even be a matter of national policy alone. Shutting down wayward banks could have an impact on the whole economy. For the U.S., its major trade partners, and beyond, when other countries find their banks under U.S. scrutiny, they step in. In 2012, Standard Chartered and HSBC were facing criminal prosecution. George Osborne, at the time the UK's Chancellor of the Exchequer, I have no idea what that is, Chancellor of the Exchequer, wrote to the chairperson of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, and Federal Secretary Timothy Geithner to discuss his concerns that a heavy-handed response could have, quote, unintended consequences. He warned of a, quote, contagion. The implication, close one bank and the whole economy could suffer. Prosecutors stood down. Again, you don't mess with the altar of mammon. Mazur, the former federal special agent and money laundering expert, says there are a mosaic of reasons why U.S. authorities let the money keep running, but one of them may just be that it finds its way into too many pockets. Quote, even if it's bad wealth, it buys buildings, he said. It puts money into bank accounts. It enriches the nation. So there you go. After all that, they just say, well, let's arrest the bankers. And, you know, this could play into the Great Reset being, you know, it sounds like, you know, most of, if not all of the major banks are involved in this. And technically, legally, the government does have the ability to put banks out of business. One way to, you know, create the hegemonic monolith of banking that could rule not just the country, but the world, being shut down all the banks and force them all to conglomerate into one financial system. And how do you get the people not to fight that, especially the CEOs at the top? Arrest them all. There you go. Now you get to make room to consolidate the financial power of the world. So there you go. Big deals, man.
So what do we do? What can you and I do?
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. Buy silver. I have my silver shield coins here. I have the Putin. I don't know if you can see the Putin coin.
Oh, I'm not looking.
Kind of hard to see. Hard to make it out. But there's a Putin coin, and I also have the Hillary Vote Prison 2016 silver coin.
Ooh,
it's a good one.
Maybe we should make a Canary Cry silver coin.
Yeah, good idea, Basil. Should have done that when silver was $14 an ounce.
I know. What's it at now? Is it up at 30? Somewhere floating around 30?
Yeah, 20 something. I think it went down. Everything crashed today, so there was a big pullback. Probably because it freaked people out when the story came out.
Well, it is. I mean, this is the story. I mean, that is openly being reported as the story that caused the crash of several markets this morning. You know, it came out last night or something. And it's really freaking people out, man, which I think may be having the intended effect.
Yeah, it looks like silver in the last 24 hours. Well, everything dipped. I lost a couple dollars in the last 24 hours. So that's pretty big for silver.
Oh, no.
Back down to $24 an ounce. But yeah, you know, as peons in the system, you and I, and maybe probably our listeners, unless George Soros, unless you're listening, I'm just picking one out of, or Billy Gates. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do other than to protect what we can with, you know, or what's available to us, which are gold, silver, land. But even then, you know, a lot of that's, I don't know, it's debatable. You can protect your land with guns. That's one way to do it. And so you can grow your own food and things like that. But I mean, that's in the carnal sense. Obviously this is if you look at it from the eternal spiritual perspective, this is all seems to be going to plan. And I feel like there's a reason why the scriptures talks about a mystery Babylon that gets rich and fornicates with all the nations, and the whole thing is destroyed, and all the merchants of the earth weep when they see.
Yeah, I mean, the banking system really fits a lot of those descriptors.
Yep. Yeah, there you go.
Okie dokie. Sounds good. Well, we spent a lot of time on that, but it's a big story, and I know it's not as exciting as robots taking over the world, but this is going to be a really big impacting force on the future just of the world at this point.
The world.
So, Gons, we got a lot more to talk about, but I think we should take a real quick break.
Let's do a quick break.
Yes, it's wake up time.
Oh, no, it's not wake up time. It's break time.
It's opposite. That's right, folks. We're gonna just take a quick break, just a really quick one. But after the break, we got some stuff to talk about, some COVID-related news, and we'll see how much time we got. But we got some cyborg and transhumanist news as well that we need to get into. So stick around. Very important stuff after the break. But we want to take a second to thank our producers for this episode, as well as us as our new Twitch followers. Gons, you got your dinger ready?
Getting there. Pulling it out here. All right, we got it.
All right. Okay. I'm going to start by thinking Black Whales.
What? Black Whales? Oh, like black. Okay, cool. Sweet.
Yeah, okay. Crazy Llama 5.
Llamas are cool.
Jesus Haas 1.
All right.
Layla Darlin 1221. Jumpin' Jehoshaphat.
Ooh.
Scream Me Something Beautiful. Catfish Willie, 76. Sounds like a old bluegrass song. Oh, Catfish Willie, 76. Joe O's.
Sounds like a cereal.
You said that last time because I just said that one twice.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, that's the end of the list. And Joe O's got a second shout out and an identical comment from Gons. Thank you for following us over on Twitch. If you haven't done it yet, you should follow us at twitch.tv/Canary Cry Radio. Turn on notifications. It's a great way you got to follow us on multiple platforms or else you're going to start missing episodes. It's just how the internet works nowadays. So thank you very much to our Twitch followers. Next, I want to thank some of our producers. And if you're new to the show, you might be thinking, what do you mean producers? This is a live stream and a podcast. Why do you need? Well, here's the deal, folks. We subscribe to the value for value model. And let me tell you, I got a fun little story here for you, Gons. For those who don't know, the value for value model means we put out our show, we do it for free, we do the best job we can, and we just try to do it pretty consistently. We're pretty good at that so far. And, we don't do advertisements, we don't do anything like that. Instead, we give listeners the opportunity to become producers, not for giving donations or anything. It's just like the real world. Any sort of media that you help create financially, you are a producer. You can put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your resume. We will vouch for you. And people love doing that. So that's good. And part of the reason we do this is because advertising is part of the problem. It's part of the, I consider it part of the altar of mammon, because what it does is it incentivizes people to consider their audience as a commodity to be collected and grown. So essentially, you can turn around and sell that commodity, sell your trust, your attention to a corporation so that, for our own personal gain. And that just isn't right. It's part of what's wrong with the world. It dehumanizes you, the listeners. It dehumanizes the creators of whatever content you're getting into. And Gons, a great example of this just happened. As we always say, when it comes to advertising, you're then pressured to become brand friendly, which limits what you can and can't say. It limits the topics that you're allowed to talk about without fear of losing your income. And, we just recently got we get emails all the time of people saying, that's stupid. I hate it when you talk about, when you beg for money, just do advertisements. I don't mind listening to advertisements. And that's you. You are brainwashed. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying begging for advertisements is you begging to have your own attention commoditized and manipulated against you. And here's one example, Gons, is the Joe Rogan example. Just recently, he came out because he had talked about people getting arrested in Oregon for setting fires, for arsonists. And of course, some people are saying it's connected to Antifa or whatever. There's been sheriff's departments come out and say, no, we don't expect this to be connected to Antifa. There's no reason to assume that right now. And Joe Rogan mentioned it on his show and then came out the next day and took it back. And there were articles. Yeah, he had to come out. He apologized for saying that, there were arsonists involved with these fires.
But there were.
I know. It's not... It's not conspiracy theory. There's been somewhere like 8 to 12 arsonists arrested and written about in the mainstream media and booked, and their mugshots are available. But so for all intents and purposes, Joe Rogan wasn't lying, but he had to come out because he's got his $100 million deal with Spotify. He does 10 minutes of advertisements at the beginning and end of every show. But no, you can't talk about certain things when you are in the financial system like that. He came out, apologized, says he read one story about arson, but there's no arsonists. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And there was articles written in Vanity Fair. I mean, crazy, huge mainstream stories about Joe Rogan's apology for talking about arsonists in Oregon. And you know why that happened? Because he's under the thumb of big money. He's under the thumb of Spotify. He's under the thumb of his advertisers. And, look, I'm not here to promote Joe Rogan, but he talks about a lot of crazy stuff on his show. But, he came out and talked about arsonists, and somebody gave him a whooping, and he had to come out and very publicly apologize for talking about arsonists. And that's what happens when you put yourself under the authority of advertisers and under the authority of, other paid programs. And that's why we are on the value for value model. There are no corporations in between us and you. This is funded by the people for the people. And that's, Gons, why we want to thank our producers, because that is the only reason we're allowed to talk about the things that we talk about on this show. It's the only reason we're allowed to espouse our own ideas about things that go against the official narrative. So I want to start by thanking our new Patreon producers over at patreon.com/CCNT. And they are as follows. First of all, I want to thank our new producer, Brandon. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
And next, I want to thank our new producer, Joe.
Joe Rogan?
No, not Joe Rogan. Actually, he's one of our new Twitch followers. So thank you very much, Joe and Brandon, for the support over on patreon.com/CCNT. Now, we also have patreon.com/Canary Cry Radio, another place where you can support us. And I want to thank our new producer, James.
All right.
Thank you very much, James. And then also, we got Joe coming in on that Patreon account. Same Joe. Joe coming in twice, 2 different places. Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate that.
Joe, not Rogan.
Not Rogan, your new producer name. So there you go. Thank you, Brandon, Joe, James. You guys are the reason we're allowed to talk about what we talk about on this show. Now, if you don't like Patreon, that's okay. A lot of people don't like Patreon. You can head to canarycryradio.com/support. canarycryradio.com/support. That's right. If you don't like Patreon, canarycryradio.com/support. Both of these links will be popped in the chat there for you if you feel the call to participate in the rebellion, the resistance, and help out the show. But we got PayPal options. You can come in at a monthly subscription, or if commitment's not your thing, you can go ahead and make a support amount in any amount that you want, as well as cryptocurrency and stuff. Gons, who do we have coming in over at the website there?
All right, so for Canary Cry Radio Patreon, we have Alex coming in at $33.
Ooh, thank you very much, Alex.
And not to be outdone, Jonathan as well with $33.
Jonathan, 33. Ooh, the 33 donations coming in strong.
But also, we got I think this is still it is.
I think this counts.
Yeah, it counts. $33.11.
Ooh,
coming in
now it's getting shady.
I think you pronounce it Axel? Axel?
I think Axel.
Like Axl Rose, the lead singer of Guns N' Roses?
Spelled differently, but okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, producer Axel.
And also, this was one that apparently we forgot a few episodes ago, but we're doing it here now, making it up. Caleb.
Thank you very much, Caleb. And thanks for the email keeping us posted.
Yes. And I was going to say thank you to Joe because he gave to both News Talk and Canary Cry Radio. But you were talking about Joe Rogan, and all I can think of was that old song by Jimi Hendrix, Hey Joe. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
Hey Joe, where'd you get that gun in your hand? You know? I think he was looking at what's going to happen to Joe Rogan. Go crazy. From all this stuff.
Dude, I really have no horse in the Joe Rogan race, but I feel sorry for the guy, man. He is control. I mean, I don't know much about him, but a lot of our producers have told me he's been controlled for a while. But when I saw him having to come out and make that apology for an objective fact with police records and mugshots, and he had to come out and apologize and bend the knee to whoever's paying his bills. That was really kind of a scary situation. Made me really thankful that we do it the way we do it, and even more thankful for the individual producers that helped create the show. We couldn't do it without the producers.
Right. There you go. And other ways you can help produce the show. We also accept cryptocurrencies as a hedge against the Great Reset.
The Great Reset.
We also accept jingles, which we did receive a jingle. This is not the greatest quality, but hold on. I got to pull up the name. I totally forgot the name here. Do you have the name of the person who sent us this goodbye jingle?
Nope, I'm sorry. I don't have it in front of me. I'm gonna pop into the email.
Yeah, I'm going to play it, and then we'll thank him. The volume is a little low on this, but we were told to use it as an outro. So here it is.
It is time to say goodbye once more. But Aslan Gonzo will return very soon.
Very good. Who sent that in? What is their name?
I'm trying to pull it up here.
Let me see. I found the email. Let me make sure I don't dox this person. I think it's okay. Y-Man?
Yep, Y-Man.
Y-Man. Thank you, Y-Man. We'll need to play around with the levels a little bit to make that serviceable, but very good. We appreciate people sending stuff in.
I don't know why, but it reminded me of the ride at Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion. Kind of sounds like...
it does kind of have that vibe, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're supposed to be in a haunted room while we do this podcast.
I did like the Haunted Mansion. I have a very vivid memory as a kid riding the Haunted Mansion and the, no pun intended here, but the roller coaster of emotion. I would get terrified and then like super entertained by like some dancing ghost and then terrified again.
Good old Disneyland, occult wonderland.
That's right.
The other thing, we always have art, and today we have one piece of art that came in.
Thank you.
One art, please.
There we go.
And it's from Ali Gazel Bonds.
Thank you,
chat.
Ali.
And this is Basil 2020, better with Basil. See the future through rose water-colored glasses. This is the presidential campaign for you, Basil. Apparently, she's
better with Basil.
Posters. Yeah.
That's a great campaign slogan.
Oh, I know. Yeah. What's the one they're using now with the globalists? Build back better. Right.
Yeah. Build back better with Basil. Uh-oh. Thank you, Ali. Very prolific producer of ours. Always coming in with the show-related art, and we appreciate that. Gazel and Bonds in the chat. We all thank you very much. And yes, of course, in this art, there's a cat on my head and a cat, again, who have all been confirmed to have been writing all my scripts, sitting on a box that says Basil's campaign script. So very good.
Hashtag Monty.
Yes, this cat's wearing hashtag Monty 2020. Very good. Okay, there you go. And if you're an artist out there and you want to create some art for the show, you can send that to canarycryradio@gmail.com.
There you go. All right. Are you done?
That's a good question. Let me look at my notes real quick, make sure we're all good. Of course, we want to thank That Night Wind, producer That Night Wind, for sending us time codes. If you're watching on YouTube, after the live stream, there will be time codes up there that are relating to each topic that we talk about, so you can jump around and don't have to listen to all the nonsense. And thank you to That Night Wind for your diligent work at helping us with that. I think that's it. I just do want to say again, this Joe Rogan thing, I don't want to harp on it too much, but it really, really strengthened my position, especially because we got some of those like, stop begging for money, just run ads emails recently. They really got me down. And then this Joe Rogan thing happened. I'm like, that is exactly why we do the things the way we do. So if you're out there and you haven't helped produce the show, or maybe you have already, it's really a powerful experience. I've done it with a few of the shows that I've listened to, become an actual supporter of the show. You take some ownership, you feel closer to the show, you value it. There's something about it. You start valuing it more, which is this great sort of circle of life thing. You value the show, so you support it, and it makes you value it even more. So if you've been sort of toying with the ideas of supporting us, becoming a producer, now's the time, because we don't want to turn into a Joe Rogan and have to apologize for everything we do on the show. Weird thing, just a peek behind the curtain for the patreon.com/CCNT. We've really had a great year changing our format like this and people jumping on board and supporting the show. It has been so up and down on September. For every person who's come on and become a producer, we've had one delete. We're actually have had a total of $3 in growth for this month after all the deletions. So I don't know. It's a weird month. I don't know what's going on, but we appreciate those who come on and help balance that out for us. So yeah, if you've been toying with that idea, give it a little prayer. Bring it up in prayer. See if you're led to support the show. We really can't do it without you guys. All right.
It's a great reset, Basil.
It is the great reset. How about we great reset this and get back into the show?
Yes, it's wake-up time.
Hey, yo, wake up.
That's right, folks.
Nice transition.
Yeah, you like
Let's
that?
great reset the show.
I'm a professional broadcaster.
All right.
Okay. What do you want to do? You want to start with this?
You want this? You want to start with this? I got a couple things here from the Rona front.
Okay.
COVID.
Speaking of saying something and then taking it back.
Uh-oh.
This is Yahoo Finance through MSN.com. Thank you, no paywall. Coronavirus update. CDC changes, then deletes new guidance on airborne transmissions.
Classic.
Classic. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, on Monday sowed confusion over its stance on the airborne transmission of the coronavirus by publishing and then removing new guidance that suggested the virus can spread beyond the 6-foot parameter that's become commonly accepted in social distancing policy.
Of course.
Yeah. The agency pulled the new guidance, which marked a significant shift in understanding of how the virus has spread. Previously, the CDC said the virus spread through direct exposure and inhalation of droplets only within about 6 feet of another person. But recently, scientific research has advanced the idea that infected aerosol particles can linger in the air for longer than previously thought, something the CDC appeared to acknowledge before it quickly reversed itself, saying the new language was posted by mistake. According to epidemiologist Dr. Eric Fagelding, the new developments mean that 6 feet may not be enough of a distance, especially in indoor spaces, and that there had been growing convergence on that point among scientists around the world for months. But the CDC's reversal, even if temporary, is both shocking and expected. Fagelding said, quote, I don't understand what there is to politically gain by denying the existence of aerosol transmission. At this point, trust in the CDC and FDA are just so woefully deficient, he told Yahoo Finance Monday. The CDC's head...
It always has
I know, that's what I'm
Just
saying.
depends on, different sides.
If it affirms your bias or not, apparently, according to Fingelding. The CDC's head-spinning shift stirred new controversy in the increasingly politicized battle over how the U.S. is addressing the COVID-19 crisis. The agency has come under fire for its contradictory messages on testing asymptomatic carriers, masking, and the rapid moves to develop an effective vaccine. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to get into the rest of it here, but there you go.
So what was the switcheroo? They said it was at 6 feet.
Yeah, it was at 6 feet, and they said it was a problem. You need more than 6 feet, and then they pulled it back.
Oh, and so we're back to 6 feet.
I think we're back to 6 feet. Yeah.
Okay, great.
They're like, no, we must keep the 6. So there you go. That's the first quick update on the coronavirus. And but by the way, I don't know if you've noticed and this goes hand in hand with the value for value model here, because we can sit here and say COVID-19, coronavirus, and we don't really care anymore. At least I don't care anymore, because at least for the YouTube channel, it's demonetized. So There's no ads running on this channel anyway. And if there are ads running, I'm not making any money off of it.
Yeah, let's real quick. I don't want to stop you. Keep your thought. Okay. Some people, depending on where you are in the world, you might get ads on the podcast version. We don't get any of that.
Yes.
We there. If you are getting an ad on our show, it is without our consent, and there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have like a legal fund to fight that.
Yeah.
If you're hearing ads on the show, that's done by somebody else, and they are taking the money. We don't get any of that.
I think Stitcher does that. They play ads before and
the
after.
European Union, iTunes. If you're in Europe on iTunes, they apparently just get to put ads on it, and we don't see any of it.
Yeah, messed up.
Yeah.
But what was my point here? Oh, my point was that, because of the value for value model, we can just say coronavirus, COVID-19, and the algos will freak out, but it won't matter because we're not advertising on this channel.
Yeah, we don't lose funding for it.
It's really sad to watch some of the YouTube channels that I watch avoid the word coronavirus or COVID-19 like the plague. They'll be like, hey, you know that thing everybody knows about, 19, you know what I'm talking about? Huh? Like every time they have to say, it's so annoying. It's just like, just say it.
The word vaccine.
Yeah, vaccine.
And some businesses, there are some algorithms that if you talk about Disney, they'll get you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Soros was probably one of them too, which, by the way, we didn't talk about it, but there was a big weird moment on Fox News with Soros, like 2 days after we did the Tyrannosaurus Rex episode. And then all of a sudden, Newt Gingrich mentioned Soros, and a couple people were like, I don't think we need to mention Soros. And then it like dead air for a couple minutes while the anchor got some words in her ear, which, by the way, we don't have producers in our ear either. In that way, yeah, for better or worse. Although I guess the chat can sometimes act as that.
Yeah,
you guys are
producers.
shills.
We have producers sitting here chatting with us.
Yeah, a little different context, but there you go. Also, this other story was very interesting. This was thedailybeast.com under Deep Red State. A notorious COVID troll actually works for Dr. Fauci's agency. And I love this picture of Fauci with his mask and the Rona, stenciled in the background. Just The managing editor of the prominent conservative website Red State has spent months trashing U.S. officials tasked with combating COVID-19, dubbing White House coronavirus task force member Dr. Anthony Fauci as a mask Nazi. And and intimating that government officials responsible for the pandemic response should be executed.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, baby! But the writer, who goes by the pseudonym Strife or Streef, I think it's Strife, isn't just another political blogger. The Daily Beast has discovered that he actually works in the public affairs shop at the very agency that Fauci leads. William B. Cruz is by day a public affairs specialist at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, but for years he has been writing for Red State under the Strife pseudonym. And in that capacity, he has been contributing to the very same disinformation campaign that his superiors at the NIAID, or the NIAID, say is a major challenge to widespread efforts to control a pandemic that has claimed roughly 200,000 U.S. lives. Under his pseudonym, Cruz has derided his own colleagues. See, this is a part where this Daily Beast piece itself is propaganda.
Right.
Under his pseudonym, Cruz has derided his own colleagues as part of a left-wing anti-Trump conspiracy and vehemently criticized the man who leads his agency, whom he described as the, quote, attention-grabbing, media-whoring Anthony Fauci. He has gone after other public health officials at the state and federal levels as well. Quote, the public health Karen Waffen, as he's called them, over measures such as measures such as the closures of businesses and other public establishments and the promotion of social distancing and mask wearing. Those policies, Cruz insists, have no basis in science and are simply surreptitious efforts to usurp Americans' rights, destroy the U.S. economy, and damage Donald Trump's re-election efforts. Quote, I think we're at the point where it is safe to say that the entire Wuhan virus scare was nothing more or less than a massive fraud perpetuated upon the American people by experts who were determined to fundamentally change the way the country lives and is organized and governed, Cruz wrote in a June post on Red State. Quote, if there were justice, he added, we'd send a few dozen of these fascists to the gallows and gibbet their teared bodies in chains until they fall apart. Lovely, lovely, lovely words. Cruz's authorship of the posts, which the Daily Beast was able to confirm through public records, social media postings, and internal records from the National Institute of Health, NIAID's parent agency, is a remarkable break from the public positions of the agency that employs him in a public relations role. This is very interesting. So Daily Beast saying that they confirmed this through public records, which they don't say which public records, social media postings. I don't know what that means. Did he share some of those articles? I don't know. And internal records from the NIH, which is a remarkable break from the public positions of the agency that employs him. And illustrates the extent to which the response to the pandemic has become deeply politicized, even within the agencies at the front lines of fighting it. Cruz isn't just a civil servant anonymously disagreeing with with his bosses online. He's actively undermining their work and even suggesting retribution against them. But while Cruz may be one of the most remarkable cases of a government official contributing to the misinformation campaign around COVID-19, he's hardly the only one doing so. His most scathing writings about the coronavirus came over the summer as other Trump loyalists in the nation's public health bureaucracy sought to undermine the work of some of the government's foremost scientists. The Daily Beast, this is where I have highlighted here. The Daily Beast could not definitively determine whether Cruz was writing for Red State.
What?
Or posting to his Twitter account while on the clock at his government job.
Oh, okay.
All right. So,
Yeah.
okay. So maybe, all right.
So
weird.
they're saying...
No, I get it. I get what they're saying.
We think maybe he did this, but we're just going to say it. But also, we don't know for sure, but wouldn't that just be delicious if he was?
Yeah, and then it says but the vast majority of his writings at the site this year has been published during the work week, often during normal business hours, raising questions about the ethical use of taxpayer resources. Which, okay, all right. Daily Beast has to know that anything that's published can be published on a schedule, number one.
Right.
You don't just because you hit publish at a certain point in time, or you can delay it. You can say, oh, publish this at 3 p.m. So this like criticism is sort of
Can I tell you my theory on this?
Sure.
I think it's on purpose. I think
that's what I think.
I think this is controlled opposition.
Yeah.
He's in the government. He's infiltrated the sort of alternative media or whatever in order to, it's just going back to the Hegelian dialectic that they're framing it as, isn't this awful that this alt-right conspiracy theorist made it into the government? But no, what it really is isn't it awful that this government agency is infiltrating alt-right conspiracy theory zones, in their words, not my words, in order to stoke the fires of division and contention, to move forward with, cracking down on control and dividing people and, conquering the minds of our citizens.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the whole thing goes into how long this guy, Strife, has been writing for the Red State, which I think it mentioned at some point that it was as early as like 2005, 2006. So the long play on some of this stuff, which goes to show, and part of it too, the things that he wrote for the Red State were pretty extreme. Like, the masked Nazi thing. Okay, that's one thing, but like, killing him
even the Nazi talk, I think that's a direct propagandistic category for the government. And of course, we say it all the time. Propaganda was made legal for the government to use against the people. It was reinforced back during the Obama era. And so, you really got to watch out what's coming from the government, what's propaganda, what's this, what's that. And this more than likely, in my opinion, is a propaganda piece by the government in order to, keep these divisions going.
Yeah, keep it going and also stoke the fire of the right-wing, alt-right, whatever you want to call it, and give them, it's almost like giving them what they want to hear to stoke the flames.
Right.
And this is absolutely propaganda.
State-sponsored propaganda
Machinery.
Yep. So there you go.
Yep. All right. Very good. Well, I got a couple little transhumanism updates here for you. This is newseu.cgtn.com. CGTN, I'm not really familiar with that outlet, but interesting thing here. Mind control devices that can solve paralysis. Just a little update on this whole thing here. Quote, how can we use the power of artificial intelligence to help our biological intelligence if it's affected by disease or injury? This is the question that led Aldo Faisal and his team at Imperial College London, a very active institution in AI transhumanism, to build a technology that will allow people living with paralysis to perform real-world physical actions via a brain-computer device controlled by their minds. Paralysis is often the result of spinal cord injuries, which prevent brain signals from traveling to the rest of the body and making the limbs move. The idea behind the project is to develop a brain-computer interface that will be able to, quote, automatically understand what the brain is thinking and translate that into actions for the brain. As Faisal, head of research, explains, signals from the brain are picked up through an electroencephalograph, a technique that requires electrodes to be attached to the scalp. Tom Nabarro has 64 of these electrodes attached to his head when Razor speaks to him about the technology. Nabarro, who lost use of his limbs after a snowboarding accident in 2007, is working with the Imperial College team to train for this year's cybathon. Whoa.
Yeah.
The World Championship of Robotic Systems, at which people with disabilities compete to complete everyday tasks using state-of-the-art technology. Scientists team up with pilots like Tom, people with real disabilities who test and advance their new technology. Quote, for me, it's been an amazing experience, says Nabarro. The event itself has only just started. There's never been anything really like the cybathlon. People call it the Cyber Olympics. And it's something that has only just happened because now we're at a stage where there's so much assistive technology. During the preparation for the cybathlon, the brain-computer interface needs to collect data about brain signals corresponding to the certain movements, but the human brain is a very complex system. It's made up of about 86 billion neurons or nerve cells, which are largely responsible for the way we think, feel, and act. Each connection sends signals or fires at the average frequency of 4 to 10 hertz or 4 to 10 times per second. Some even fire at a rate of 300 to 400 hertz. This is a huge amount of output. So to pick out certain information within a mass of noisy signals is a difficult task. It's incredibly noisy, to give you a sense, and it would be probably like whispering in a typhoon or something like that, explains the research chief Faisal. Artificial intelligence is able to spot trends and patterns through all this data and filter out blah, blah, blah. Tell me more about the Olympics. There you go. Long story short, the cybathlon, Gons. It's Cyborg Olympics.
I was going to say, what if people that don't have disabilities go in and compete? Are they going to be like ostracized? Like, hey, you have control of your full limbs.
That's an equivalent argument to trans people in sports, I think. You know, you've got trans men who become women and then, go into wrestling and win every single match. I could imagine that it'd be a similar problem.
Yeah, but no. I get what you're saying, but also if it's just based on brainwave activity or brain activity in general, then
that's a good point.
It shouldn't really matter.
Technically, if it's all brain based, it wouldn't matter if the person is paralyzed or not.
Right. Or if they're male or female, presumably, unless maybe they believe that they're weaker or stronger.
Oh, I'm not even going to touch that, Gons. Why would you need to separate men and women in the cybathlon, Cyber Olympics?
There is no gender in the transhuman future after the Great Reset. There's another story here very quickly, and then we'll do the CERN thing real quick, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay.
This one from the dailystar.co.uk and Daily Star. The headline, New Blood, Computer Brains and Frozen Heads.
Ooh.
How billionaires will live forever.
How did I know billionaires would be the next word in that?
I know. I won't read the whole thing, just a couple paragraphs here. Over the past year, the gap between the super rich and the rest of us has grown wider than ever before, but the difference between ordinary people and billionaires might be more than just money. Some high net worth individuals have been looking into extending their lives far beyond the 70 or 80 years most of us might hope for. Peter Thiel, for example, the billionaire co-founder of PayPal, has invested in a number of medical research startups looking extending life expectancy. Did I read that wrong? Has invested in a number of medical research startups looking extending life expectancy through the breakdown. I'm gonna call it a typo. That's a typo for sure. There's no way those two words should be next to each other. One of the company's longevity obsessive, Thiel, has bankrolled his Ambrosia. Have you heard of Ambrosia?
Mm-hmm.
Ambrosia is one of the 3 outfits looking at experimental vampire blood transfusion that put the blood of young people into the lens of oldies. That sounds
oldies.
Oldies, but also they call it vampire blood transfusions.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
Peter
reported
Thiel.
on Ambrosia when it first spun up a couple years ago.
Yeah. So the blood, if warm blood can't make you immortal, what about freezing it instead? The idea is chilling a body to postpone death until a future society has the technology to repair any injury or illness. We know about that. And Thiel, his PayPal colleagues, Luke Nosek, and U.S. talk show host Larry King are all known to have signed up for freezing at the point of death.
That explains everything.
Oh, man. Yeah, his cold heart will be frozen even more. They're going to put him in the cryogenic thing, and they're going to be like, we haven't turned it on. He's already frozen.
I love how this is starting to make its way into sort of the social justice arenas, this transhumanism thing, where it's kind of similar to the the healthcare debates,
Yeah.
Healthcare is for everyone. It's a human right. Well, soon getting vampire blood and freezing your brain is a human right.
Yeah, it goes through Elon's Neuralink.
Freeze me, baby.
And then American futurologist Paul Sappho predicts that the multi-billionaire class could evolve into a separate species entirely. Quote,
"Whoa.
I sometimes wonder if the rich can live on average 20 years longer than the poor," he says. That's 20 more years of earning and saving. Think about wealth and power and the advantages that you pass on to your children. I think 20 years.
I like how they have to make that an economic issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Access to the finest foods and exercise equipment money can buy will definitely make anyone live a little longer, but one of the bizarre ideas could just make a few eccentric billionaires effectively immortal.
Ooh,
there you go.
Dun, dun.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right. Want me to end this thing?
Yes, and last one. I actually don't have a true jingle for it, but I'll just do this one.
You can't handle the truth.
That's right. A little CERN update here for you folks. This is from physicsworld.com, and it reads like this: CERN's emissions equal to a large cruise liner, says report. Eco warriors.
Yeah.
Greenhouse gas emissions emitted by the CERN particle physics lab near Geneva in 2018 were 223,800 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, similar to the emissions from a large cruise liner. That is according to the lab's first public environment report that details the status of CERN's environmental footprint and outlines some objectives to reduce it in the coming years. The report finds that 3/4 of these emissions came from the fluorinated gases used for particle detection and cooling of the particle detectors. Covering the years 2017 and 2018, the report underlines the scale of the challenge that CERN faces to reduce its emissions. Quote, "It has provoked debate and increased the environmental awareness of all the people who work here, as well as our user community." User community? Who's using CERN?
Oh, a lot of people.
What do you mean? For portals? Portal transportation?
Yeah, they're just, they're summoning all those demon gods.
Demon adoption?
Yeah. You didn't know about this?
I wasn't signed up. And made us think hard about what we do now and how we design the next generation of accelerators, says Friedrich Bordry, CERN director for accelerators and technology. Quote, it's really positive that CERN staff are being transparent about their impacts and what they have set themselves an absolute reduction in emissions target as opposed to a greenwash style intensity metric. What? I have no idea what that means, but okay. The report covers everything from noise and biodiversity to water use and radiation. Comparing all these aspects, reducing the use of fluorinated gases will have the greatest positive impact, and the report sets out a path to do this, such as repairing gas leaks in the LHC. Oh, great. They're
Fix those gas leaks.
Okay, yeah, great. Let's fix some gas leaks. Optimizing gas recirculation systems. The ultimate goal is to replace fluorinated gases in the detector cooling systems with carbon dioxide. Isn't that the exact thing that we don't want to use? What? Okay. Whose global warming potential is a few thousand times lower. Oh. Quote, when we built the Large Hadron Collider, we didn't appreciate the global warming potential of these gases. Our main concern was the ozone hole, says Bordry.
Yeah, what happened to the ozone hole?
It's fine. Got put back together. Didn't you remember that?
I thought it was...
No, the ozone's totally fine. 100% fine now.
Nice. I thought it was a pretty holy...
No, we're back. The facility has set itself an objective of reducing its direct greenhouse gas emissions by 28% by the end of 2024. The report also sets out a plan to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, anyways, you get it. They just repeat it over and over. There you go. CERN killing the planet.
I really would like to see a protest down with CERN. And you have like your Green New Deal people on one side. And then they're opening demonic portals on the other, and they're together. They're together.
Something that biblical scholars and fringe Christians can team up with the SJW eco warriors about.
And people will meet each other. There'll be marriages, and these babies will be very confused.
Let's not go too crazy. Let's not go too crazy. All right. Well, there you go, Gons. Anything else for today?
Nope, just a reminder, Hear the Watchmen coming up, and Shimura 20 to get a discount.
Shimura 20, sign up. Be there, folks. Be there, be square. Maybe while you're doing your thing, maybe we should do like a live breakdown. I'll fact check you here.
Fact check myself.
I'll live stream.
Hey, wait a minute. I think that's wrong what I said there. Let me debunk myself.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Remember, we'll be back another episode on Wednesday, the 23rd. Yes, sometime between noon and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure to follow us all over the place. Twitch.tv/Canary Cry Radio. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. We'll be back then. And so please remember us. If you're thinking about becoming a producer, consider that doing that by Wednesday. We'll give you a shout out. We love our producers. Remember, you can put that on your resume, or your LinkedIn, or whatever. We will vouch for you. Just give them our email. And really, again, I can't say it enough. After watching this Joe Rogan nonsense, I'm so thankful to all of our producers. And as much as I hate getting those emails from people who just love advertising so much, I'm glad to see the support in the chat for the way we are doing things. It's not easy trailblazing Gons doing things a different way. But I think it's the only way for us to do it. So remember us for Wednesday. Become a producer. We appreciate you very, very much. You can go to patreon.com/CCNT. Or if you don't like Patreon, you can head on over to canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right, folks. Thank you so much. Now, remember, go ahead and leave a rating and a review. We're probably going to, if we get some ratings and reviews, we're going to read them on Friday. That's a very helpful way to support the show if you're unable to help out financially. That tricks the iTunes algorithms into sharing the show with other people, and that's very helpful. You can just leave a rating, 5 stars, and a review. Tell people how awesome the show is, and that that'll help out. You can also just share the show. Press the little share button, post it on your Facebook, your Twitter, or send it directly to someone you love who is starting to wake up and see the things going on in the world. This would be a good episode because of the BuzzFeed, the Fincen thing. That's going to be a big topic, and that's going to wake up a lot of people to the problems with our current system. And I think it's better that people hear it from us than they're, I don't know, some other wackos, because we're here to try to connect it to the real stuff that's going on. You can just share the show, let them know. They're starting to wake up and see that the world is not what it seems, and we'll be happy to help them down that narrow path. And if you need any more instructions, here's what you do. You walk right up to them, you grab them by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right, just ask Noah. All right, folks, thank you so much. Remember, again, I'll say it again, Wednesday, sometime between noon and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I can't wait to meet all our new producers at that time. And so make sure to tune in. Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in again. But until then, think outside the cage.
Canary in the coal mine.
It will kill.
Stop this progress before it is too late!
We should invite fewer people to be born.
Look it up.
I want to shake things up, shake things up. I want to shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone. I want to stir up some controversy. I want to rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I get I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
None of the snooze is what I want to see.
In the future, humans will be confined in a people's zoo.
I'll keep you safe and warm in my people's zoo. I'll keep you safe and warm now in my people's zoo. You, yeah, you in my people's zoo. I'll keep the cameras on.
Was nice.
You're fat and sassy in my people's zoo. I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo. You, yeah, you, yeah, you, in my people's zoo.
We should invite fewer people to be born.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.